I know half of the people in the room, but for those that don't, I'm Reed Lifset. I'm the Associate Director of the Industrial Environmental Management Program. And this is a lecture series on business and the environment that we've been running for over 20 years. It's funded by a modest endowment in memory of Joel Kurihara, who was a graduate of the Forestry School and the Management School in 1991. He worked with Conrail in the Global Environmental Management Initiative, and when he died, his co-workers and family established a fund in his memory dedicated to dialogue among stakeholders. So we are pleased to have the support. This, every year we pick a theme for this lecture series, and this year the theme is industrial ecology as a source of competitive advantage. And we're in this series, we've got our visitors today. Earlier this month we had the CEO of SustainU, a company that makes apparel out of only recycled materials from the U.S. On April 15th, we're having a webinar with some folks from Mercedes who are quite interesting because they have routinized the use of life cycle assessment in their product development process. And we will end the series on the 22nd with the CEO of a company called Foresight that is doing work to establish an eco-industrial park. So the question is, why this theme? Well, industrial ecology is the foundation for the Industrial Environmental Management Program here. For the few of you who may not know this term, it refers to the pursuit of sustainable production and consumption, typically through a focus on materials and energy flows at different scales. And it includes, you could say that the famous question of paper versus plastic falls under the rubric of industrial ecology. So there's life cycle assessment and material flow analysis, eco-industrial parks, sustainable materials use among the topics that industrial ecology encompasses. But the reason why we're having the lecture series this year is we wanted to see if we could show a business case for the clever ideas that come out of industrial ecology, see if there's traction in the real world. So today, we have the pleasure of having the founder and CEO and the director, let's see if I get the title right, Director of Environmental Technology and Material Science here from Preserve, a company that has been doing work in precisely this area. I'm not going to steal their thunder by talking about the company itself. I think they'll do a better job than I will. But let me just say something about our speakers. Eric Hudson is the founder and CEO, and he started the company in 1996. He's from Massachusetts. He comes from a family very rich in entrepreneurialism, including the grandparents who are founders of Brookstone. He's worked in operations management and trading at Fidelity, and he has also established his own consulting firm, but I think his big baby here is Preserve. John Lively, who I said is the Director of Environmental Technology and Material Science, has been working with the company for a long time as well. He has a BA from some small school on the Charles River in Boston in environmental science and public policy. And for the industrial ecologists in the room, you'll be interested to know that he's actually had a course with the man himself, Robert Frosch, who wrote the famous article that is said to have really started the field. So we expect a lot out of you. So the plan here is to have a talk for about 45 plus minutes and then some Q&A. So thank you for coming, and here we have the dueling speakers.
Thank you very much, Reed. Everybody hear me okay? Thank you, John. Let's start in with the first slide. It's a pleasure to be here today. We've had some great budding new relationships with Yale. A couple of very good interns 2 years ago, and one who's in the crowd today from last summer. And I think we have one coming up this summer. So we value highly our relationship with Yale. I started Preserve in 1996 to reuse Earth's resources to make products from materials that have been used before and to make them fabulous products, that there'd be no sacrifice in choosing these products. Amongst the dark greens, the light greens, and anything in between or beyond dark browns. So a lot of people choose our products today not knowing anything about the environmental side of them. We are #1 selling in the natural channel. We have 3 products that have done very well in the Whole Foods market and beyond of the world. And we've been recognized as a leader in extended producer responsibility, particularly with our Gimme 5 program, which we'll talk more about. But also, mostly from day one, we chose to take back our products when they are finished and then give them a new life. And we'll be talking a lot about that today. And we have a penchant for partnerships. One of our core values is to work with other companies, to work with other organizations, and try to extend out the mission that we have at Preserve beyond what we're capable of. Oftentimes, people, consumers, stakeholders will think we're much larger than we are because of the expanse of our relationships than how many products that we sell. Next slide, please, John. So reusing Earth's resources, what does that mean? It's taking the natural gas or oil that's caught up in a yogurt cup, in a package, in a product, and recovering it, and then turn it back into a product that we bring into the marketplace. In addition, we created a system to take back that product from day one. So the Preserve toothbrush was the first product that we created, and the goal was not only to make it out of yogurt cups or other recycled materials, but also to capture it back from the consumer when they were done with it. We started with a mailer that got a lot of debate, but in essence, it was the smallest mailer that we could create without the post office saying, you can't do that take-back program through the system with a really small mailer that used very limited resources. We had to have it a certain size. So in a lot of ways, we were handing out these mailers in the early days, and your natural consumer was saying, does that make sense? Are you creating sort of more waste here than you want to? Is there a downside to this? So we were on a mission to try to get back as much of the products as we could at a time in these mailers. So it's sort of the beginning of this education process or an information sharing process with our consumer of trying to get them to bulk mail as much back to us at a time so that we weren't using more resources than we wanted to create that new product after the toothbrush. The other side of this was that the Stonyfield Farm partnership came in about 2000. So we started in 1996. And about 2000, we were able to establish a relationship with Stonyfield Farm that really brought the identity of the recyclable that was turning into the toothbrush. In the early days, it was, we were making it out of recycled materials. And that was interesting. That was novel. Most things made out of recycled materials in those days were ashtrays or pen holders. And no one talked about that it was made out of recycled materials. It was maybe just a cheaper way to make a product. So to actually take something from the recycling stream and make a new product out of it was a novel idea back then. Certainly a product that one would put in their mouth. So we set the bar very high on trying to make a high quality product from recycled materials. And then also in 2000 transitioned to this message about the yogurt cup. And that really brought home the story to a lot of our preservers, as we like to call them. They were able to really identify that material, that product that I use at home, I can then turn it into a new product with Preserve. Next slide, please, John. You want to add on here? Sorry, please.
Just to take us back for a second to the take-back story, we had an interesting discussion with Reed beforehand of sort of the history of some of the take-back programs out there. I think you guys are familiar with the ubiquitous milk bottle returns that happened years ago. I think when Eric launched the company in 1996, this idea of pulling a toothbrush back was, if not the first plastic article consumer products take back, it was close to it. It was really sort of leading ahead of its time.
Just to maybe get into this later, but a little bit now, when we first started thinking about recovering materials, the foundation of Preserve was really about helping the recycling industry to create the demand side. So there was a lot of recycling that was going on in the early 90s, but there wasn't the evidence of companies taking those recycled materials and actually turning them into products. So the mission and part of Preserve was to help the demand component of the recycling industry by proving that companies could utilize these recycled materials, that more and more consumers were taking their own hard work and recycling and turning them into new products. So that was one of the core foundations of the founding of Recycline at the time, and that's the background company name of our company, but we're mostly known as Preserve today. Transitioning into today, just wanted to make sure we got this out. We are a B Corp and have been for over a year now, and we see this as a fantastic movement in the United States to really bring forward a structure that helps companies designate themselves as a company that's out there to do good, to bring social value, and most importantly, to designate themselves as a company that's not just about financial value. They have to go through the process with their board of directors, with their stakeholders, and say, we're going to change our bylaws, and we're going to say that we need to factor in other value creation beyond financial value in the decisions that we make in running our company. So we love this movement. We're a big part of it in the sense that we're out there talking about it a lot. And I bring it up, quickly in this presentation, in the sense that this is really, this is where we are today from 15 years later, from those early days of, really being a renegade, where people were kind of scratching their heads going, you're going to do what? You're going to take a toothbrush back and turn it into what? Or you're going to take, recycled materials and make a toothbrush out of it? That kind of conversation back in the late 90s was sort of crazy talk. Today it's not, and there's a lot of big companies that are taking steps and realizing that good business is great for the earth, and it's good for their business as well. Just our timeline over time. 1997 is when we launched the toothbrush, and we've dibbled and dabbled in a couple of funky products there that were mostly customer driven. Whole Foods Market and Wild Oats both asked us to come out with a tongue cleaner and toothpick, so we obliged. They still are there today, but in essence, every product that we choose, we seek to make it as light on the earth as possible. And it's primarily through sourcing number 5 plastics. And we'll talk more about why we've chosen number 5 plastics, but it's been a great decision. In the early days, choosing number 5 plastics was mostly around the recycling challenge that this material had. 1s and 2s had made some major advances in the recycling participation levels, and number 5 was really left behind. So it was a great material to focus on as it related to trying to help the demand side of recycled materials. Just a couple of core tenets of our business. We make everything in the United States of America. That went along with our environmental commitment. We wanted to be close to source. We wanted to make things here close to where we were recycling yogurt cups and a lot of other things. And we were distributing primarily in the United States, so we wanted to make everything here in the United States. This has definitely become something that more and more companies are interested in doing, and obviously more and more consumers are seeking products that are made in the United States of America. It's primarily based on the economy, but it's great that a number of companies are also choosing it from an environmental impact standpoint. No animal testing from day one, BPA free, as you all probably know. Polypropylene very rarely has BPA in it, but we do tests on our materials to ensure that we are BPA free. Gimme 5 will be talking about that more. That's the evolution of our Take Back program, but we have some slides that speak specifically to it. Everything is dishwashable, washable, and we'll emphasize the reusable nature of most of our products as well. So here we introduce the vehicle we're going to talk a lot about today. We've moved from that old mailer that used a lot of resources to our package, And our package now, the delivery vehicle of our toothbrush to our consumer, is also now our mail-back, take-back vehicle. So it also has gone through some evolution. That evolution has been, its first purpose was, we will take back your product and use this mailer to put it in, and we're going to pay for the postage of that as well. That really designated the program as sort of a front runner and extended producer responsibility. But also, we've also taken it a next step, and that next step is to really get across some of the messages that we want to get across, like joining the Gimme 5 community, becoming someone who is an advocate for recycling, and also learning about how you can mail back in bulk to reduce, one, our postage costs, yes, but also to reduce your impact as well. The more that you get other people in your dorm together to put a box of toothbrushes to preserve, or our bottle ship, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about, it gets more resources back to us in a more efficient way.
And I think while we're here, it's worth pointing out, we've gone through a lot of trouble throughout entire history to make sure this toothbrush comes back to us, but we extend this to all of our products. So if we go back a couple slides and think about that portfolio, whether it's the handle on the razor, the tongue cleaner, or cutting boards and colanders, which should last you a very long time, we want to make sure we've got some vehicle to get those back, and that's part of the evolution of why we think we need a Gimme 5 program that's got more of a bin in a store, which we'll get to, of course.
One of the early thoughts of the Take Back program for Preserve was also that the toothbrush was made of multiple materials. And so you couldn't easily just throw it in your curbside bin, even if back in 1997 they would have taken a number 5 part. But it had bristles, so we knew that it had to have some kind of a system that would bring it back to be able to be turned into another product. We had to take control of that process because it was a multi-material part. Introducing the Gimme 5 program here. So back in 2005, we had 10 years almost running of taking back both number 5 plastics to make our products, encouraging people to recycle number 5 plastics, as well as working with communities to help them improve their processes of recycling number 5, and also taking back our products from when they're done with their useful lives. But we still had consumers saying, I think it's great what you're doing, I think it's great that you're using recycled materials, but I still can't recycle my sour cream container or my yogurt cup. What are you going to do about it? So we said, we're going to take it back. So we are now going to start a program that's both mail-in and has bins at retail, where we'll take back number 5 packaging, and through partners like Whole Foods Market, convert that material into a feed stream to make our products. So the Gimme 5 program was started at Park Slope Food Co-op in Brooklyn, and we had about a 2-year pilot there. And it was very successful. There were a lot of people in Brooklyn, the New York area, that would find out this location where they could bring their number 5 plastics that weren't recyclable in their community. And we're also finding that even though there are some number 5 single stream collections around that area, or around areas where Gimme 5 bins exist, that consumers love the fact that they're able to really identify that feed stream of a yogurt cup, and that it turns into a product here, in Massachusetts or in Michigan. It's just a state that they can identify that everything is staying here in the United States of America, and that that they know that full supply chain. So we're going to talk a bunch more about the Gimme 5 program, but this is really the genesis of it was, please solve my problem. I think it's great what you guys are doing, but if you're trying to help out recycling of number 5, I still got a problem here, and you need to help me figure it out. Just a couple of highlights. We have gotten awards and recognition at Preserve, which is great, for a number of our products. So that's always wonderful to have, and particularly this package. This package was very novel. A package that that pays the postage for bringing your product back to the company that made it. That was revolutionary, particularly in this category. Yep. Just give you an idea of some of the retailers that we work with. We are a nationally distributed company now, and we have 5 categories of products. It has been difficult to bust into the mass market. We're having more and more success today. I hope it's something that comes out today. We want to talk about, is an EPR program, a take-back program, a competitive advantage? We'll talk about it some more, I think, in question time, but it certainly has been a real challenge for us. It has not been a competitive advantage until the more recent years, where a retail buyer might say, oh, I get that. A retail buyer 10 years ago or 15 years ago definitely did not get that. That was something that was disturbing, really. So changing consumer behavior. I want to speak to the evolution of Preserve, and as we were starting this company 3 or 4 years out, we're doing something different, and then we're realizing that we've got a platform. We've got a platform to inform, a platform to help green consumers be more green. And this seems very almost mainstream, I think, probably to most people in the room today, that you can have access to information or companies that help you act more green. But back in the late 90s, it wasn't. And so as we were turning the century, we loved the fact that Preserve was really a gateway product. It was a company that people could come to very quickly and easily make a difference in their everyday life. It's a far cry from building a building like we're in today. So it's a very easy step at Preserve to join a green movement.
Right on. And I've seen, as we've gone out there more and more and seen more and more opportunities back on the retail side to get our products in front of people, that this point has been debated a bit. Is that easy step really going to lead to those bigger steps? Is the green product purchase going to keep you rolling, and the next thing you know, you're in a hybrid car, or maybe you've gotten rid of your car altogether? And I find the literature to be exciting right now, and people writing about this and saying, well, we don't really know. And it's interesting on the ground with us to talk to consumers and say, oh yes, I had a life-changing moment. I started buying Preserve, and it kept me going, because it was like, if I can buy a toothbrush made from recycled content, maybe I can take those next steps. Or maybe I've gotten invited into a larger community. If you go online, you bought your Preserve toothbrush and you start Googling around, you find people who are living sort of interesting alternative lifestyles. There's a blogger out on the West Coast who's living pretty much a plastics-free lifestyle, except for a few things, and the Preserve toothbrush is one of them. And we're thrilled. She talks about it a lot, talks about the Take Back program, and sort of introduces those people to this other way of perhaps living.
Mm-hmm. It's a great place to be in. When we think about, and when I say great place, consumer products and being green and being on the forefront of the consumer products industry and trying to reduce our impact. When you think about the impact that we're all having on the earth, it's more easily defined, I think, in eating, transportation, home climate. I think people associate and understand where they're having an impact in those 3 quadrants. The 4th, consumer products, I think it's starting to have its effect now, but I think it was more challenging for someone years ago to understand the impact they're having when they're choosing a product. Thinking about the supply chain of that product, reaching them, and how it's happening to that product after they're through with it. So it's an exciting place for us to be in, and obviously the impact is there. 29% of U.S. emissions happen in the sourcing, production, and delivery of consumer products in the United States. I think we've all probably seen this type of slide before, and we all know that we're here for a reason. If everybody consumed the way we do in the United States, we need 5 Earths to support that level of consumption. So there's a lot of work to do every day, and we're happy to be involved. Start in?
Sure. In our efforts to change consumer behavior, we took a magnifying glass to one of our lines of plateware. We introduced a plateware line a few years before the one you're seeing on the slide here that was made from recycled polypropylene, that was reusable. You could put it in your dishwasher and wash it. It could go in the microwave. We felt pretty good about things. We've taken a single-use throwaway category, made some big headway. A few years down the road, we were getting some inquiries on, gosh, this is great. Do you guys want to do another line of plateware? So, okay, sounds fantastic. We'd love to. Where do you want to go? And my reaction and a number of our reactions is, we want to go with that really, really lightweight plate. Let's cut all the impact out of it. And through some sessions with some advisors, one of the things that came up to us, and I'd seen this anecdotally as well, is, well, these plates you already have out there today, sure, they can be thinned up, but what's going to happen to them if you do? And I'd been to social situations where someone would throw a party and the plates would end up in the garbage can. Sometimes a little better, they'd end up in the recycling bin. But these were plates that were very clearly, in my mind, meant to go in the dishwasher. And so when we went around, we said, well, let's find out where that line is. What makes a plate reusable? And we found pretty obvious things. There's a heaviness to it, a stiffness to it. And so we sat down with a group of consumers and a number of plates. I wish I had that shot of the woman fiddling with one of the plates on this slide. And we found that there's this line, and we carved weight or added weight, however you want to look at it, to make a plate about this weight, got a certain stiffness to it, and then added in some other features to make sure that the reusability aspect just sort of hits you over the head. So on the back of it, the whiting that's in right there is in, molded into the back of the plastic. We just do that to make it come out. There's the reuse forever sort of staring you in the face. There's a date of manufacture, so people can look at it and say, wow, I've had this plate for 20 years. We'll hit one of those dates, I'm sure. And I think interestingly, some of the things to say that sustainability really is for everyone, we wanted to reach out and put Braille on the back of this plate. As we looked at it, we said, there are a few more subtle things we can do. The curved handle and the curved around the rim adds a little stiffness to it. And then finally, pretty importantly, the texture. The texture conceals knife marks. We found in our conversations with people of, okay, you are going to reuse this plate. When are you going to throw it away? It's like, oh, when it gets marred up and too scratched up. I said, okay, great. Let's add some texture here and see if we can try to hide those knife marks.
And this has been a really fun category in the sustainability space because it's been revolutionary from the statement that we're trying to make. There are reusable plasticware out there before this came, but to emphasize that we want you to reuse this forever, and we're doing this deep research to make sure it's going to be there for you for all those years. We're pushing the envelope on trying to change behavior, just trying to help people to understand that you can opt away from paper plates or styrene throwaway plates, and to think about not only how this thing is made, but how you use it every day. So it's been a really fun place to be in. Some of the buyer meetings that you have at retailers are challenging. When you're walking out of the buyer's meeting and he's all excited about this new product line, he loves the look of it, he loves the colors of it, he loves the fact that it's made out of recycled materials in the United States of America. And I remember this meeting very well. We're walking down the hallway, and it was at BJ's. And the guy says to me, am I going to sell less of them because it's reusable? And I had a hard time not saying, yes, you are going to sell less of them. But you're going to be, in the beginning, you're going to be that one place that people can go for this, so hopefully it'll add to your category. But the bottom line is you're going to sell less. People are going to reuse them, and that's what we should be working towards. Here's a great, sort of next generation of that, next step on that is called shareware. So we had heard and just saw developing with a lot of our preservers that there are communities which are buying one set of our product, our reusable tableware, and then announcing to everybody in the community that they've got them, and please come over to my house and pick them up and use them for your next function. So we took that and we loved it, and we established what we call preserved shareware. So it's the ultimate reuse. You're reusing it in your home, but then reuse it in your community. This has been another interesting place to be in, and sort of emphasizing that we have to reuse Earth's resources to make our products, but once we have our products, we've got to reuse them as well.
Got it. And I think there's been an explosion recently in this topic. I've seen it all over the press, and a number of sites that are trying to facilitate the action. And we've had an interesting internal debate around, are we the hub where folks register and try to share their preserved plateware? Yet we've seen a number of sites, and memory's failing me now, a number of sites where people are registering to share their power tools, to share their kayaks. And we think as those sort of develop, pick some winners out of there and try to get our preserved sharewares into those communities. And hopefully we're off to the races with this.
So we're going to dive a little deeper into the mailback program now and the package itself.
Right, and specifically toothbrush focused.
This is just laying out the stages of our company in, it's just sort of very general terms. But in the first 96 to 2007, we're really, proving out the model and launching our products, and primarily in the natural channel. From 2008 to 2011, we're bringing that concept that we've talked a lot about so far of recycling, encouraging the demand side of recycled materials, as well as take-back program, into really integrating sustainable design, bringing in outside consultants as well as hires to really emphasize sustainable design, and partners as well. We work very closely with a partner called Continuum. So really bringing in the sustainable design components into the development of our products, and also setting up some key partnerships to make sure that we're going to be successful as a for-profit company in the sales and distribution and marketing of our products. In 2012 and beyond, we've talked about our B Corp establishment, as well as we're now at a point where we're really investing in the Gimme 5 program. And we're going to talk more about that, but it's not only the network of recycling that we're creating, but also the community of the recyclers, and seeking to bring these people together to continue to galvanize this effort to bring number 5 recycling much further along the path than it should be today, or where it is today.
So I chose this slide as the beginning to a small set of slides to describe the product design, packaging design effort that went into taking us from our old and still sold toothbrush canister into this new lightweight mailback pack. And to just set the stage a little bit for you, as Eric's talking about the continuous improvement timeline there, a few years ago, Preserve was going through a fairly major rebranding effort with our partners at Continuum. And we were reaching back and sort of touching our roots about what did we believe in. And these are some of the statements that came out of some copywriting meetings. And at that same time, we're realizing that we have a toothbrush package that really needs an update. Certainly on the branding side, we could easily see that. But at the time, the toothbrush, which was made of recycled yogurt cups, had a postage-paid take-back program to give it another life, was sold in a rigid plastic container that was a fantastic travel or storage case, but you didn't need it every time. I mean, your dentist tells you replace every 3 months. Maybe people do it every 6 months, but you need this canister once every 3 years, if that. And so we realized, boy, we really got to do some updating on this. And you went back to our values, and we're like, gosh, why do we even packaging at all? And some of the bars that were set to come up with this next package was, well, it should be a real revolution in a package. It should show people, aspire to show people the way that packaging should be done in the sustainable products industry. So with that sort of as the background, I'm going to jump forward to sort of our solution and then talk a bit about it. We came up with a package that in some ways could have been categorized, we could have gone down the road of making it into a cheap polyethylene bag. Could have been up there like candy and could have cost pennies. We chose a bag, nevertheless, because of the lightweight, the flexible film. It was extremely lightweight. But we wrapped it in polypropylene, ended up having to abandon an all polypropylene package because we just couldn't manufacture it. And most films and bags you see today have a little bit of another material in them. In this case, for us, it was polyethylene. And it allowed us to make this package that feels, and we've got samples for everyone, that feels high-end, that feels like, that feels akin to that travel canister that you bought and you were happy to pay for. These are a few call-outs on the package. I mentioned the lightweight, the postage-paid mailer to enable recycling. And this thing over here says return to preserve for recycling. One of the things I loved about this was it really screamed at the consumer, send me back, send me back. We want to go back. I want to have another life. This package reduced our footprint dramatically. Ran the life cycle assessment on this with the Sustainable Packaging Coalition's tool, and we came out far ahead of where we were before. And we came out far ahead of, say, your, not to talk about other toothbrushes, but to come out far ahead than your typical toothbrush sold in your cardboard blister pack. Felt like we had a great revolution even without the postage-paid mailer on here.
John, hold on.
Yep.
Move it on?
Go ahead.
It's pretty, I mean, if you're a marketing person and you're in consumer products and you're looking at this, you're saying to yourself, you're talking about everything but how well this toothbrush works. And I can't see this toothbrush, and this is really challenging for me. So in meetings with buyers at the Targets of the world, they really pushed on us with that. They really pushed on us. And this was the first package that, had a hero shot of the toothbrush, but you couldn't see it. At least as far as we knew in the mass channels. There really was not a package in which you couldn't see the product. And then you've got powered by recycled yogurt cups as your first message. You've got easy to recycle in the middle, and then you've got made in the USA are the most prominent things there. There is a dentist design, but that was emphatic and a positive. That's a very positive side. But in addition, our sales went up 40% at Target when this product launched. So it was very well received by even the mainstream shoppers.
We've made this point a couple of times, but I think it's emphatic to make it again. We pay for the postage to get these toothbrushes back. When we introduced the package, we started getting a lot of toothbrushes back. Our rates jumped dramatically. And with this package today, we get about 20% of our toothbrushes back. To give you a comparison, when you talk about PET soda bottles, it has a fair bit of infrastructure to collect them. It's about 30% recycling rates. I know that can be debated a little bit, but I'm in the ballpark, I'm sure. And we managed to, with our package, get 20% of our toothbrushes coming back. The hard part is, this is an expensive program to run, and the consumers who are doing this are unknown to us. There's 20% of our consumers are going through the step to make sure their toothbrushes come back to us and doing the things that we want them to do. Nevertheless, they've remained anonymous to us. So we've decided just recently to continue to evolve the program. I'm going to go on the next slide. Continue to evolve the program and still pay for the postage. Still in our blood, we want to pay for the postage to get these toothbrushes back, but we want to evolve the program so that we can feasibly pay to get all of them back. And I know we're a little bit like the news. We're going to talk about Gimme 5 in a second and talk a little bit about how we're doing that through Gimme 5. But with our toothbrush package, we realized sort of a key insight. Eric mentioned the Postal Service earlier. It turns out that when you put one toothbrush in this package, or somehow if you were to magically be able to stuff 6 toothbrushes in the package, the unit cost is the same to us. So we decided, boy, if we could get people online, give them the postage paid insignia, and encourage them instead to ship it back in, say, a water bottle where you can put 6 toothbrushes, we've cut our cost dramatically. And this is the bottle ship that we refer to today. We drive people online, they sign up. Each toothbrush has a unique code printed on the package. So we're doing a couple of things. We're trying to get to know you. Second thing we're doing is we are ensuring you've bought a preserved toothbrush. Over the years of having the postage paid insignia, we have gotten some strange things back. We'd rather not. We'd like to know you're really going to send us toothbrushes back. So now, okay, they've bought a toothbrush. We're a lot closer. And this is the evolution of that.
I would just only add that, I think you covered it, John, but that the bottle ship was one of those. We seek aha moments at Preserve. We really want people to go, they did it again. And the bottle ship is one of those moments where people look and they say, I can take my used water bottle or soda bottle and stuff 6 toothbrushes in it, put the label that you're printing for me with postage on it, and put that in the mail, and The post guy's really going to take it. That's fantastic. I love it. I hope you did the research on that. Anyway, it's working out fantastically.
So we're going to transition here. Just to let you know sort of what's coming up, and doing a time check, we're going to do 2 sets on Gimme 5. We're going to talk a little bit here about Gimme 5, its founding, and where we are today with it. And then we're going to do a little brainstorming about Gimme 5, where we are today, and look at number 5 plastic recycling in general, and perhaps where we can go with the program. So number 5 plastic recycling rates. They're low. They're 1%. And this is looking at all of the polypropylene resin in the U.S. household waste stream. See the numbers for PET, for HDPE, a bit more respectable. And then you see this graph over here on your left, and it shows the amount of that resin in the waste stream. And you see polypropylene rising dramatically. And this speaks a little bit to the versatility and the wonders of polypropylene. Eric mentioned earlier, we've chosen polypropylene for a reason. When you go and look at a life cycle assessment of polypropylene, maybe cradle to gate, so look at the beginning of it coming out of the ground to a pound of resin in your hand. Polypropylene is one of the lightest plastics on the earth that's out there. I know with bioplastics, there's some challenges to that these days, but compared to PET, we're doing a lot better. As well, when folks go and do a screen on polypropylene as far as its toxicity and health and safetiness, it comes out ahead of most others. So this rising polypropylene in the waste stream, in some sense, makes a lot of sense to us. But it's this 1% that's been a real problem for us, a real struggle.
Yeah, and I just only emphasize that it since we started Preserve, it has become the most produced plastic in the United States of America, yet the recycling rates remain at less than 2%. So it remains a fantastic crusade to be on to improve the recovery of this now most chosen plastic material. Starbucks made a big change from moving from PET to polypropylene, mostly because of health concerns.
Health concerns and greenhouse gas. They did a cradle to gate LCA on their cold drink cups, and they went from PET to polypropylene and splashed. It seemed everywhere to me anyway. They splashed all over that there were pretty significant greenhouse gas reductions in its manufacture. And have since become and continued to be pretty big proponents of polypropylene and polypropylene recycling. When we talk about polypropylene recycling in general, I think there's a number of templates out there to look at and say, well, how should we approach this problem? And this is one that, being a company that someone described to me once as, you guys seem steeped in cradle to cradle. And I've always liked to remind ourselves that actually the cradle to cradle in that book, not the thinking, but that book came out later than we were founded. Maybe somehow we influenced that, but nevertheless, the organization being steeped in cradle to cradle, we gravitated towards this pretty quickly. Actually, just give a little plug here. There was a Yale intern working for us over the summer who, as we were laying the groundwork for Gimme 5, came to me with this. I'm like, this is beautiful. Wouldn't this work really well? And this is intelligent materials pooling. It's come from Michael Braungart of McDonough and Braungart in the cradle to cradle work. So Eric's covered a little bit the history of Gimme 5. In a nutshell, go back to 2000, 2001, Stonyfield Farm is coming to us saying, we've got polypropylene cups coming from our manufacturing site. Can you recycle those into a toothbrush handle? Yes, we certainly can. We tell that story for a while, and people kept coming and saying, well, that's great, but I still have more yogurt cups. What should you do about them? And we started the work in Brooklyn at the co-op there, piloted in a few more Whole Foods, and then I believe in 2008 we launched 2 Whole Foods and said, you know what, we're going to put a bin in the front of the stores, collect polypropylene, bring it back through our system and recycle it into the handles of our products. And I'll talk a little bit about the down and dirty of those operations. But it's been interesting to find a group of brands that wanted to come together, help sponsor the program. It's not a free program. In fact, when we look at the material we source, it's by far our most expensive material to source. So when we think about other places we can find recycled polypropylene, even with the low rates, we're able to find polypropylene for far cheaper than we can pull it back to the grocery stores and clean it up. Nevertheless, group of brands, Stonyfield, Brita, Burtâ, Whole Foods, and Green Mountain Coffee Roasters come on board and said, we'll help you do this in one way or another. And we've got various programs that we run with each one of these people. Not going to go into detail on each one. If folks would like to see that, you can certainly hit our website or chat with us afterwards. We can go into some of the detail on how we serve each one of these folks.
Yeah, and most importantly, they're coming to this program to help fund the recovery of the number 5 plastic in their package or their products.
So just to walk through for a second a little bit the operations of, say, the Gimme 5 program. There's the bin. You'll find this bin at a Whole Foods market. It's often in the cafes. It advertises, recycle your number 5 plastic here. Right now, we've got one rule for the Gimme 5 program, and that it's clean, stamped number 5. That lands in the bin there. You guys understand this, of course. Whole Foods grocery store. Every day there's trucks full of goods that show up and unload, and they're empty or partially empty. The number 5 gets on those trucks and is eventually transported, backhauled, back to the distribution centers. From there, there's a little bit of a QC check on what's inside there. Polypropylene is then aggregated up, it's baled, it's densified, put together in truckload quantities, and then we come and pull it into our supply chain where we're doing a hand sort on it and sort it out into a couple of different streams with various criteria. And then a fairly typical polymer reprocessing operation. We're grinding, we're washing, drying, and then remelting down to get the plastic pellet. I've got a little sample here. People can come look at it a little bit closer later. It's light gray. Looks like we ground up yogurt cups and melted them, and that's essentially the process. In doing all of this, one of the things that we wanted to do, and we did this pretty quickly out of the gate with the Gimme 5 program, was to run a life cycle assessment. This is cradle to gate. This is a pound of recycled polypropylene from the Gimme 5 program and a pound of virgin polypropylene. I think the benefits here are fairly typical of polymer reprocessing programs that we see. PET, HDPE, they also show similar results to these. And it's great for us to know that even with the Gimme 5 program and maybe some of the added transport that we're doing, we're nevertheless able to show significant environmental benefit. These are our collection results over the past couple of years. You can see that we've been in 10 regions of Whole Foods, about 250 stores. Last year, we collected about 242,000 pounds, and turns out to be a very nice equivalent metrics for yogurt cups, 16 million yogurt cups. No doubt there's a lot more plastics in grocery stores to collect, but this has been a really great start for us. I think a couple of things to mention before we move on. The Gimme 5 bin collects not only clean stamp number 5, but it collects the specific products from some of our partners. So Brita approached us as we were launching the Gimme 5 with a specific problem. While they didn't have a classic number 5 cup to be recycled, they had a water filter that was made out of number 5. Inside contained your charcoal and your ion resin beads to do the water filtering. They approached us and said, we'd love to have a take-back program around this. And we think the first steps are setting up an infrastructure where consumers can bring this, maybe even mail it in, and let's try to split it out and recover the various bits of what's in this. So we've been able to do that for them as well. We are now targeting people with other sort of similar hard-to-recycle packages. So Burt's Bees, the iconic little yellow lip balm tubes. You guys are all fairly familiar with those. Extremely hard to recycle in the sense those aren't going to go into your curbside, never really be recycled. They can come back to us. We can clean them up and repurpose them, back into toothbrushes.
Just a couple of notes. The reason they're difficult to recycle is because of the size of them, the lip balm tubes. They kind of get lost in the process. And Brita also was getting pressure in the United States to have a program that brought back their filter. They had it in the European continent, but they didn't have it in the United States, and they found Gimme 5. Just quickly, we've talked about some of this already, but this is sort of lays out the relationship that we have with Stonyfield Farm. We love, as we mentioned, partnerships, and Stonyfield really helps to bring out the identity of our company as well as to extend our mission to many more people than we'd be able to do on our own. So we met them at an Earth event. Can you convert a yogurt cup into a toothbrush? We're not sure. We tried for about a year and a half. We have a partnership with UMass Lowell, and the plastics engineering department helped us really move that melt flow. In the beginning, it was a little challenging for us. We had a designated melt flow we had every time, and a much more identifiable stream of material. And the yogurt cup was had a much higher melt than we were used to using. But we were able to overcome those, and today it's a lot easier to move melt flows in a compounding environment, something that was definitely not thought of back in, as far as I knew, in industry back in the 80s and 90s. There wasn't really a reason to do it. You just push the button on the virgin plastic PO, purchase order. We celebrated it in 2006 with a co-branded toothbrush. We've done some other products for them, as well as we have done some co-branded products in our general merchandise. So we introduced with Stonyfield Farm a specific mini food storage container to help change behavior a little bit as well, make a message on the container, and also encourage people to buy the 32-ounce yogurts, and then also use a food storage container to transport it when you're consuming. One of the things we love about the Gimme 5 program is the community that we're creating, and working with our partners to reach more and more consumers. This just gives you an idea that with all of our partners combined, we have 4 million likes. So we're really in the Facebook world. So we're really seeking to work and invest with our partners and investing in the digital side of this to help our outreach to those consumers that are interested in the recycling advocacy that Gimme 5 offers.
Yes, and I just think in a nutshell, when we're talking about competitiveness, the ability for a small company to reach out to the number of consumers in these other companies has been really fantastic.
Just a couple of quick notes on the marketing side of Gimme 5. So we do have an app that enables people to find a Gimme 5 location near them, to understand who's the recycling leader in that location, and also to receive news from each one of our partners. And this really tries to embody where Gimme 5 will be in hopefully a year from now, but the number of different ways that you can access information from our partners, deals on products from our partners, but also to communicate with each other in almost sort of a little microcosm of recycling consumers within Facebook, and share some of the efforts that you're doing to make a difference through recycling with your friends via social network.
Gotcha. So now we're going to run through Gimme 5 quickly again. You guys recognize this, of course. So we've been running this program for a number of years. Where does polypropylene recycling stand today? There we go, excuse me. The good thing about polypropylene recycling is with the advance of single stream, there's a lot more availability. It's almost up to that sort of 60% threshold where CP, consumer packaged goods companies, are allowed to advertise as this cup or this article is recyclable, no asterisks required. Nevertheless, you guys all know from the earlier slide, those rates are still down in the single percent. But the markets for recovered polypropylene are extremely favorable. Prices have been increasing lately. In the last couple of years, a program like Gimme 5, if we chose, would not have any problem offloading our Gimme 5 for much higher than we could a few years ago. Our material stream continues to grow. When we go do an audit, we find up to 60 brands of yogurt cups in the stream, and that's not in all regions. I think if we were to go do more regions, we could probably push that number over 100. And interestingly, recyclers are now targeting grocery store for sources of polypropylene and rigid HDPE. And this is the polypropylene and polyethylene that's coming out of their back end, their buckets, their tubs.
Probably fairly straightforward, but in general, the recycling of a material, the cost of bringing that material to a manufacturer like us is generally a static cost structure compared to sourcing virgin plastic material. So virgin is going to have much more fluctuations with the price of oil or natural gas, whereas in general ours should be fairly static because it's really all about the processing costs of bringing that material through. The biggest cost fluctuation is either based on it being a substitute for virgin or also the transportation expense, which does fluctuate with oil.
The bad, there's still a lot of work to be done here. Polypropylene, a lot of food in it. There's a lot of cleaning up to do as well. Not all polypropylene is the same thing. Whereas your PET soda bottles are fairly familiar, and as you recycle them, you can handle a little bit of some of the other polyethylene that's out there. When you look at polypropylene, the melt flows vary. Combining them sort of turns them into mud. You don't get anything better. You're not able to take them back to a normal state. And there's still a good bit of reprocessing technology and work that needs to go into making sure that we're not degrading the value of the polypropylene as it's being recycled. And on the design for recycling side, there's still a lot of work to be done around colorability. A light gray plastic is extremely hard to turn into a white yogurt cup, if not impossible. And additives that are coming into the system, while they allow packagers a lot of innovation, they're challenging our recycling for sure. And the ugly, polypropylene recycling is going to face the same challenges that these resins face. These resins have had effort applied for a number of years to them. They're not very high, and I don't think, certainly the group in this room and the group who buy our products are going to be happy with this 21 or 11% rates. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, move through to a couple of different slides. This slide really quickly started out as a joke. I wanted to see how complicated I could make the value chain for polypropylene. I stopped when I realized this was plenty complicated enough, but the idea here is this is the supply chain for recycled polypropylene. And as we go and look at moving polypropylene recycling rates, who do we want to bring in the room? And I've seen this approach from other companies. Starbucks famously runs what they call cup summits, where they're trying to understand how do they get their paper cup recycled. There's some basic recyclability challenges there. One of the things they did was they looked down at the supply chain. Let's bring all the people into the room. Let's bring the paper recyclers. Let's bring the paper cup makers. Let's bring the retailers. So they brought everybody into the room and started discussing solutions. And we think we've got a solution that could perhaps be applicable like that. And here's Gimme 5 with a little bit of a different take. There's your branded partner, your Whole Foods retailer. Berry Plastics may need a little introduction. They're one of the larger polypropylene packaging manufacturers in the United States. And then Braskem is the virgin polypropylene resin maker for most of the polypropylene in the United States of America. And here's that supply chain approach for pulling all these folks in. And yet there's another approach that speaks a lot, which is let's just focus on the branded partners. Let's pull in more than one yogurt cup company. Let's pull in a Yoplait and a Dannon and a Chobani, pull all of those folks together.
And this perspective. These are happening. Some of the names will change. We're sort of just throwing up the largest manufacturers here. But what's intriguing about Gimme 5 and being the cooperative that it is in bringing together companies to solve a problem, it's intriguing in a lot of ways. It's intriguing to consumers when they see companies working together to sort of solve one company's waste problem and create a product from it with another company. But then it's also intriguing to see companies that are competitors in this marketplace possibly really working together closely to solve an environmental challenge and create a solution. So we've had situations like this in the Gimme 5 history where competitors have agreed to work together. Our partners have changed over time, but this is a bit of a vision that we have that could come into fruition in a couple of years.
Gotcha. And so with that, we'd like to open it up to questions. Feel free to drag us wherever you'd like. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really great. I've watched your products over the years, and so I'm delighted to meet you guys and hear the story. I just was curious about the. Thank you. I was curious where you get how you source your materials for your food grade products, given that the Gimme 5 and the post-consumer curbside materials, as from what you said, are not currently usable to produce those. So, sort of, what's a part of your food grade sourcing for PP, and what's your non-food grade? And where's the non-food grade going to?
Certainly. So food grade, we've got a number of food grade products. There are a couple of post-consumer polypropylene resins on the market today. There's a company that we're in a public partnership with called Next Life, who is sourcing a strictly controlled collection of used polypropylene. They provide PCR food grade. As well, when we started reaching out into the pre-consumer or post-industrial recycled polypropylene market. That market is fairly well established. Manufacturers have rejects, have things they can't reuse in their processes, and those end up in our food grade products.
Worth noting that Gimme 5 is about 20% of the material that we use today. And there's, John had mentioned, we have a number of partnerships with material reprocessors throughout the United States, and we work with them to source both pre-consumer, post-industrial, as well as post-consumer materials. Post-consumer feed streams primarily go into our toothbrush or our razor, and then anything that's food-related has a pre-consumer business-to-business, or at times a post-consumer business-to-business relationship if it's a controlled source. In addition, we're doing research with one of our partners to ultimately have a curbside food-grade post-consumer feed stream.
There you go. So thank you for that question. So this other 80%, you mentioned that some of these sources were cheaper economically, and I'm wondering how they compare environmentally to the consumer product take back.
Great question. One of the other LCA results we didn't show on here was looking at a pre-consumer or post-industrial stream, which we sourced. We're not very public with that information. We tried, frankly, to control the stream a bit. And we looked at that, and the results are extremely similar to the Gimme 5 program. In fact, with that, there's a little bit less washing, there's a little bit less transport, and it actually comes across to be, at least on the LCA results, more of a benefit. But I think you can have some arguments around that, because that's a pretty likely to be recycled stream as opposed to the stream that comes through Gimme 5. We feel like if we don't have this stream out there, it's not going to be recycled.
I just add that 15 years ago, it was a novel concept to take the materials that are coming out of the back end of your operations that were plastic and seek to reuse those. And today we'd like it to be more of a crime that you're actually not reprocessing something, you're not getting the dollars that you could in the secondary market in selling those plastics to someone who can reuse them. And as John was mentioning, some of that material, that business-to-business recycling, whether it's pre or post, can have the lightest impact. And I think we all know that there's still, I think probably perhaps a majority of that material is not being converted into a good secondary use here in the United States.
Can you also say really quickly, what's the stumbling block, or why isn't this number 5 recycled through conventional recycling chains? Or why can't you go to a small region and say, look, we want this, we want to source it, so can you add it to your list of things you take, and we'll take it from
Great. I'll start with the layman's, and you can go into the more technical. But
we won't take 90 minutes.
When we started Preserve back then, it was really that number 5s were left behind because the recycling industry had focused on number 1s and number 2s. Number 1s and number 2s were their cash cow. It was the soda bottles and the milk jugs, and that's what was being recycled, and that's what they focused on. So number 2s were really left behind. Number 5s were left behind in their process, and ultimately they were converted into a contamination percentage into the number 2 stream, or HDPE. So that has been the biggest reason why number 5s have not gotten the focus in the recycling industry. Really, because it's a slow moving industry, Today there are close to 50% of communities that do offer some kind of number 5 recycling, whether it's in single stream and whether it's commingled or not.
We work with a number of recyclers, and a couple of whom are, it's called leading curbside recyclers. They take things other than number 5 from the curbside waste stream and recycle them into really great pellets, which end up into really great products and packaging. The challenge that they've laid out a number of times to us has been with number 2 or number 1, we know what we're looking for. We're looking for a soda bottle, a detergent bottle, or a milk bottle. With number 5, there's a big, huge list. Yogurt cups make a lot of sense. How many yogurt cups are in there? Well, compared to laundry detergent or PET bottles, perhaps not enough to really get them going. And so as we look between that and all of the other items out there, the end product they end up with, I referenced mud earlier, and they end up with sort of a muddy product that can't be recycled back into a yogurt cup for sure. Can it go into park decking or plastic lumber? Certainly.
Mm-hmm. And the more that you're able to laser sort based on density, the more that they're able to really get a stream over here that they know is less contaminated number 5s. But again, as John's saying, then it's also, okay, can I take every yogurt cup and put it over here with this shape that I know is more of an injection grade, and then I've got all these over here that are thermoformed, and I've got a big differential in melt flows that make it more challenging to put those two together and make a good product. But if you could take them and really separate them based on shape and grade of material within number 5s, then you've got something that's very similar to like color sorting in the number 2 stream. So these days we can go to some partners' facilities where they're taking number 2, they're chopping it all up, very similar melt flows, and they're taking the colors and they're spraying them all over the place and coming out with orange, blues, purples, and greens, and it's incredible the products that they're able to make on the other side. Yes.
So you've given us an impressive and impressive program, ambitious agenda. I won't be the first person who asked you about your economics. I'm not asking you to open the books. I'm just asking you to give us a sense of whether you can really operate on this scale, or what is it that enables you to operate on a small scale with some high costs, such as the mail-back program, as you've already said, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Great question. We can operate on an expanding scale and be a profitable company. We've been a profitable company for a few years. We've elected to go out of profitability here and there to invest in additional expenses or capital tools. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had as a company is really when that reply mail postage increased to a level that we said this is really starting to hurt a little bit. In general, the additional sales that we got out of the toothbrush based at the Targets of the world, that sort of gross margin dollars did contribute well to the additional postage that we had to spend. But that said, this has been a great change for us to bring this program into more of a structure in which the consumer can elect to, based on more information, bulk mail, to mail to us less frequently, to do it more efficiently with our help, and to be rewarded for it. So we can reward them with products, whether it's a mini for free or a number of coupons, what have you, or discounts from our store. We can reward them in a way that makes it beneficial to both of us in the sense that they're getting value and we're getting value, and we're covering some of that postage cost through other means of creating value with our consumer.
And just to speak for a second about the Gimme 5 program and its economics, if this wasn't clear, the program sponsor, Stonyfield, Brita, Burt's Bees, they pay into the program to help us run the program and cover some of those costs. As well, when we look at what we're doing now, and I referenced 242,000 pounds, there's a lot more plastic out there. As we go and say, well, we could scale this up, that starts to make sense. as we start moving more plastic, it's a business that you need to move a lot of volume, and we see the local recyclers now starting to say, I want the grocery store stream. We'd have some changes to get through, and it is ambitious, some changes to get through to get there, but as we see recyclers coming to us with, hey, I've got curbside polypropylene, I see how to get food-grade polypropylene, we're buoyed. We're saying, that's exciting. I could take this Gimme 5 program, still run my take-back program, cover the cost I need to, and then put this into that stream, and I've got a material that's much more viable.
So do you get back something like 20% of Stonyfield cups?
No. Stonyfield sells a lot more cups than the 16 million.
Yep. And I think it's worth saying that even today, the take-back program is not a competitive advantage for us. And it certainly wasn't in 1997. People were looking at us like we had three eyes at that point trying to do this. And I hope that it will be in 5 years. That would be fantastic, that more and more consumers, preservers are realizing that they want to support companies that are taking responsibility, for their operations and trying to lighten their operations as much as possible.
Where do you find your profit center, more or less?
Where do we find our profit center?
Where do you make the more income so that you can afford to, try to wait for the market to come in on these other areas?
Really in the sale of our products. So in the gross margin dollars that we bring into our business based on the sale of our products at retail, at both brick and mortar and .com, our own website. And
Contract all that out.
we like to call them manufacturing partners. So they're we not contractors or outsourced. We're very close to them. For instance, one of our manufacturing partners is in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, and they make majority of our general merchandise products. So we're very close to them. They actually have a percentage ownership in our company. So we're very tight with our manufacturing partners. But we don't have a toothbrush manufacturing machine in Waltham. So we generally work with those companies that they're the best at making the products that we make. And then we, design the package, we design the tool, bring the tool to them, and then ask them, to do it this way every day, and that's how they punch out our products, and we bring the material to them as well.
I'd have the impression as a layperson that grocery products are constantly changing, that the producers are always looking for the next gimmick to catch the consumer's eyes. It doesn't sound like your products at the level of the individual product line are constantly changing style. How do you deal with that fast-moving world when you're the tortoise and they're the hare?
It's a fantastic question. It's hard, and it's conflicting. And I think one of the biggest conflicts I have, in my job as founder and CEO of a company that's seeking to have a lighter impact is dealing with that pressure from the retail environment that we need to sell so many widgets per door per week, or we're out. And that's probably one of the biggest pain points of our profession as a young green consumer products company. We don't change styles much, and we hear that, particularly in the houseware show. It's where's the new look of the mixing bowl? What we've sought to do with every one of our designs is bring forward natural elements, beautiful shapes and designs, so that they are long lasting. So that those designs are not a fad. They're not trying to appeal to the latest gripper. They're really using core functionality to make sure it's going to last for a long time. The preserved toothbrush has been, with some refinements, been around since '97, and we are looking at it saying, do we want a 2.0? And even if we had a 2.0, we'd keep the iconic preserved toothbrush. But I think that's the answer. And the only thing I'd add as well, Preserve has had a real color story to it. So we've really sought to bring out fresh, different, natural-looking colors, to help out the the presence of our product on the shelf. More just not mainstream colors. In general, the preserved toothbrush thought came out with some pastels that were never really seen in a toothbrush before, that had a little bit of, sort of Stonyfield gray in them, right, from the yogurt cup sources. But we've always looked at color as a way of differentiating ourselves.
And I have a quick reply to that as well. As we've grown and people have started to identify, oh, you're playing in this consumer product space, you're going to have to innovate and change. One of the engagements we've had that has been fantastic is from the local sustainability community around Boston that's also heavy on the product design. And a few years ago, as we were relying upon recycled content, recyclability, and take-back programs to carry our messages, to be the sustainability roots of Preserve, I and Eric and others started to get hip and learn more about this idea of sustainable design, of can we be a company in 15 years where, yes, we're going to be evolving and changing our products and our looks, but can we do that in a sustainable way? Can we make sure that every design that comes out has a impact-reducing thrust? And remains to be seen. I mean, I think it's just institutional learning at a small company.
Yes.
Do two more and then give the guys a break.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really fascinating. I was just curious about your recycled plastics. When you're recycling them and recycling them, how long can it last before it actually degrades? And are there new technologies in place that may extend this lifetime?
Sure. Polypropylene is a fantastic polymer in that regard. It can be recycled numerous times before it starts to degrade. And in fact, in some of the work and research we've done, we've identified that it actually isn't the recycling process that really degrades the plastic. It's exposure to UV, it's exposure to heat, it's exposure to other additives actually degrades it more. So the yogurt cup that I have collected change in for 10 years, it's brittle, it breaks, I've seen it falling apart. And that's just anecdotal evidence of the fact that if I were to recycle that yogurt cup, I have to recycle it a number of times before it gets to that stage.
It's also worth noting that with the in the mathematics, if only we get a lot of different streams, but if 2% are being recycled, it's always being our supply chain, our feed material is always being rejuvenated, if you will, by a vast majority of virgin materials into it.
But your supply chain is contaminated, right? Especially in the Gimme 5. I know you're hand sorting to take back some of the things that are not purely PP, but there is a degree of contamination.
There's a degree of contamination, but we're pulling just the polypropylene. We're doing a positive sort on our Gimme 5 program, and there is contamination. The inks on a yogurt cup is a really fantastic example of that. The mineral fillers in a yogurt cup, so there are light cost, mineral fillers in a yogurt cup, like calcium, and those degrade a yogurt cup over time. So as we're doing that, we're also, I think I was trying to say, we're pulling in that next generation of recycled material. So it's, generation 1.
Yeah, it's rarely
And
that
that's
it's gone through 2 lives or
Yep.
anything close to it by the time it's gotten to us.
Oh, just a follow-up question there. What volume of your product in your supply chain goes out the downstream side?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. On the downstream side, just on a follow-up question, how much of your product goes out and who are your customers on that end? Do you recycle? What you cannot recycle, you've mentioned park benches, you've mentioned speed bumps. How much? What volume of your product? You mentioned adding virgin material. There's obviously...
No, I think Eric was referring to the first generation of recycled material. So what comes into our supply chain, this is its first time being recycled for 99%. And what percent is being recycled for the second time, I don't know. And I'm not sure if I understand it. Let's connect afterwards.
The question being, you've mentioned that you're adding virgin material all the time, and there's also some proportion of the material you cannot recycle within to create your products. So on the downstream side, do you have customers for that material?
Right on. So I just want to make a clarification. When I said we're making all of our products out of recycled materials, So when it's adding virgin, it means that cup that's been used before, right? It doesn't have any recycled content in it. We're recycling it. We're turning it into a toothbrush. The downstream side, I think he's referring to, what does our toothbrush turn into and our take-back program turn into?
Right. And we do have customers on the downstream side of us. We get back black trays that I can't turn into anything except for black toothbrushes. It's not so great. I could do that till the cows come home. So where do we end up with this? And there is because of who we are and what we've been doing for these number of years, a number of contexts that we can go to and say, we've got a source of recycled black polypropylene with one condition here. We want it to be made into a product in the USA. And that's what we've gone out to our Give Me 5 partners. When we get things we can't recycle, this is our one condition, and we move it on through. We don't do anything public with those guys and sort of promote that. We've kicked that around a few times and not really seen the value in it.
Now, do you make money on that, or is that a cost for you guys?
It's a cost.
Yeah, it's a cost.
I mean, when we take back our used preserved products and convert them into another product, that's a cost for us. So if we're making toothbrushes from toothbrushes, for instance, that's a much more expensive toothbrush than converting it from a yogurt cup into a toothbrush.
Question in the back.
Hi. So you touched a little bit on the marketing side. You said about the packaging and how it's designed. That you mentioned that obviously the strongest focus is on the recyclability and not so much on the functionality of the toothbrush. And I was wondering if it's different if the consumers have a different reaction to that when it's different products that are usually used more often. I mean, we all throw a toothbrush to the garbage, like you said, every 3 months. Well, we use, plates longer than that. Mm-hmm. So do you see, A, what's your pricing range in that? And B, if you see a difference between different categories of products?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And we, I think I was making a bit of a point there with the toothbrush, and it's there. It's obvious. We are emphasizing, that environmental side. When in our general merchandise products, mixing bowls, colanders, we do a bit more emphasize the functionality of it, the performance of the product. But there's a bit of a quandary there in the sense that people are coming to preserve primarily because we're a lower impact company. We're a green consumer products company, and we want to make sure they see that. But in addition, we want to be able to reach out to those consumers that are the vast majority that just need a colander and introduce them to green. So while we know that it's the primary driver for a majority of our consumers, we also want to reach those consumers that are less interested. So most often with our product communication, we do lead with the performance side of our products. So if you look across our line, that's usually the number one message that's coming out, but strong second is the green component. In terms of pricing, we always want to be parity priced based on performance. So we definitely, from day one, we want a consumer to make no sacrifice in choosing preserved products, whether that's with performance or with pricing. So our pricing seeks to be right in line with a comparable product on a performance basis, regardless of its green components. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, everybody. Beautiful day. It's hard to be inside.